Fiscal Ethics Commission. Today's meeting is live cablecast on SFGov TV2 and live streamed online at sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. For public comment, members of the public may attend in person or may participate by phone or the WebEx platform as explained in our agenda document. And Mr. Clerk, can you please explain how today's remote public comment will be handled?
Public comment will be available on each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. For those attending in person, opportunities to speak during the public comment period will be made available here in room 400 City Hall. For those attending remotely, public comment can also be provided via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Access code is 2663-558-1258, followed by a pound sign, and then press pound again to join as an attendee. When your item of interest comes up, please press *3 to raise your hand to be added to the public comment line. Public comment is also available via the WebEx client application. Use the WebEx link on the agenda to connect and press the raise hand button to be added to the public comment line. For detailed instructions on how to interact with the telephone system or WebEx client, please refer to the public comment section of the agenda document for this meeting. Public comment may also be submitted in writing and will be shared with the commission after this meeting has concluded and will be included as part of the official meeting file. Written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Members of the public who attend commission meetings, including remote attendance, are expected to behave responsibly and respectfully. During public comment, please address your comments to the commission as a whole and not to individual members. Persons who engage in name-calling, shouting, interruptions, or other distracting behavior may be excluded from participation.
Thank you, and now I call the meeting to order. Item number 1, roll call, please.
Commissioners, please verbally indicate your presence by saying aye after your name is called. Commissioner Finlev?
Aye.
Chair Lee?
Present.
Commissioner Salahi?
Aye.
Commissioner Sai?
Aye.
Commissioner Flores-Fang has an excused absence. Chair Lee, with 4 members present and accounted for, you have a quorum.
Okay. Agenda item number 2, which is general public comment. Let's see. Can you check and see if there's anyone waiting in the queue?
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Item number 2 is now closed. Let us go to consent.
Good morning. I'm doing a sound check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Afton.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, we're not. Okay. Now let's go to consent calendar, items 3, 4, and 5. As noted, there will be no separate discussions on the consent calendar item unless a request is made by a commission member or member of the public in attendance, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item. Do I see any?
I'd like to remove item number 5, please. The acting executive director's report.
Okay. So item number 5 is removed from consent calendar. So let us take a vote on consent calendars, item 3 and 4. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve those items.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. Let's go to public comment, please.
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Let us take a roll for items 3 and 4.
On the motion.
Yeah. sorry, on the motions.
On the motion to adopt the consent calendar, Commissioner Finlove? Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Salahi?
Aye.
Commissioner Sai?
Aye.
Madam Chair, with 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, let us go to item number 5, which is the Acting Executive Director's Report. Commissioner Salahi.
Salahi. You got it.
Salahi.
Thank you,
Early
Chair
in the
Lee.
morning. You wish to?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lee. Yeah, the reason I wanted to pull it was to just give the acting executive director an opportunity to address some recent public news coverage of the commission's work on the audit update. Specifically, there was an article in Mission Local scrutinizing the commission's timeline for completing campaign audits, and I understand there may have been some inaccurate or incomplete information public might benefit from some clarification on.
Thank you, Commissioner Salahi. Yes, I can provide some clarification. So in the acting director's report, I've provided an update on the 2020 campaign audits. And as Commissioner mentioned, last week there was an article on Mission Local that talked about our audit backlog and delays. We certainly understand the concerns to complete these audits timely. We are taking that very seriously, and we have been actively working on it. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that the article talks about the Controller's Office having offered us assistance and that our office has not taken that assistance. That is incorrect. We've actually sought their assistance going back to even August of 2021. When we had asked if they can provide us contracting assistance, they had suggested that we work with the Office of Contract Administration. But as we didn't have funding at that time, we had to go through the funding process to get a work order and start working with OCA, which is the Office of Contract Administration. So we followed their guidance, and that process, city process, takes time to get funding and the necessary setup. So the Controller's Office had offered their pre-qualified vendor list to use for our contracting, which is the list that we used. So we sought assistance from the Controller's Office, and OCA worked with them, and we established a work order with and a contract with NGO. So we did follow that process. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And I've also provided a brief update on the 2020 audits in the ED report. We are planning a more detailed update in the February meeting where we can provide the complete status of all of our audits. And we have been working with NGO closely in getting information to them and getting initial preliminary information on their timeline. So we hope to have all of that in the next meeting. Thank you for this opportunity to provide more details.
Thank you, Director Thykendale, and also thank you, Commissioner Salahi, for raising this for the public's awareness. Do we have any other comments? If not, let's go to public comment.
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, let us go to, I think we need a motion to approve agenda item number 5. Do I have a motion?
Was this just for discussion? Is there anything to it?
No, this is only informational. The acting director.
But we did not, did we approve this along with the consent calendar vote? I thought we only voted for 3 and 4.
This particular item will not require approval as
Okay.
it's only informational.
Okay, good. Okay, now let us go to agenda item number 6, which is proposed closed session. Today's agenda item includes a proposed closed session item for public employee employment hiring of the executive director. This item has been scheduled for the Commission's discussion and possible action. Let us proceed to public comment on item 6, including whether to meet in closed session.
We need a motion.
as Attorney General. City Attorney, do we need a motion first or after the public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Deputy City Attorney Brad Russi. Yes, the Commission needs to take action in order to go into closed session. So you should take public comment before making that motion.
Let's go to public comment then.
We're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there is no callers in the queue.
Motion whether to all go into a closed session.
I move to go into closed session.
So let us proceed to closed session. Let us clear the room. And for those, oh, yeah.
Motion has been made and seconded to proceed to closed session. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Fenlove? Aye. Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Salahi?
Aye.
Commissioner Sai? With 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is unanimously approved unanimously. Yeah, we're ready. Chair Lee, we're back in public session.
We are now back in public session, and I want to thank the members of the public for your patience and engagement as we now resume our open session meeting. Now I want to turn it over to our Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Rossi, to make a disclosure.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Deputy City Attorney Brad Russi. The Commission has asked me to make the disclosure under item 6E concerning the action that was taken in closed session. This disclosure is required by the provision of the Government Code and Administrative Code referenced on the agenda. In the closed session, by a vote of 4-0 with Commissioners Sai, Lee, Finlev, and Salahi voting in favor, and Commissioner Flores-Feng absent, the Commission voted to appoint Mr. Pat Ford as the next Executive Director of the Ethics Commission.
Congratulations, I think. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you, Commissioners. Incredibly grateful for the trust and confidence that you've placed in me. So excited to get to do the critical work that we do as an agency and work just as hard as our great staff, setting a high bar for our office, for the rest of the city, for ethics and transparency. I look forward to your leadership, your guidance, your patience as I learn the ins and outs of this new role. And yeah, can't wait to get to know you all better, work with you very closely. And yeah, thank you so much to all the staff in our office. Everybody shows up every day. It's a hard job. It's kind of a thankless job in a lot of ways, but so important for the city. And I know that although folks don't come to our meetings as much as we wish they would, I know that when I talk to people, that when I tell them what we do, that they're always very thankful. So yeah, we definitely want to maintain that in our office, that we're doing important work. And even though the going can be tough sometimes, that, we all really feel that. So I want to always center that in our work. So thank you again. And yeah, so excited to get started.
I understand you will be starting January 29th. Great. And the first item of business for you will be dealing with the budget. Great. Great. Now let's go to agenda item number 7, which is the presentation, public hearing, and possible action on Ethics Commission budget priorities.
Commissioner, sorry to interrupt, but you do need to take a vote under 6F, whether to disclose or not disclose the discussions in closed session.
Okay. Pardon me. Jumping over. Okay, do I have a motion?
I move to not disclose the discussions during the closed session.
Second.
Need to take public comment? Let's do public comment.
You don't need to take public comment. The comment on this item was all taken in the beginning.
Already taken care of? Okay, so let's take a vote, please.
On the motion to not disclose closed session deliberations, I will now call the roll. Commissioner Fenlev. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Salahi.
Aye.
Commissioner Sai. With 4 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes opposed, the motion is approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now let us go to agenda item number 7, which is presentation, public hearing, and possible action on Ethics Commission's budget priorities for the fiscal year 2024-25 and fiscal year 25-26. I'd like to first ask our acting executive director, Gayatri Thaiknal, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair Lee. I'm just going to set up our presentation here on the screen. Hello, Commissioners. In the agenda, you'll see a memo and a presentation that describes the upcoming budget process for fiscal years 25 and 26. So the period that is covered by FY25 is July 1st of this year, 2024, through June 30th of 2025. And the period covering FY26 is July 1st of 2025 and through June 30th of 2026. So the series budgeting process is typically for 2 years. So just to give you an overview of the general timeline for the budget process, we received the budget instructions from the mayor's office in December, and the budget deadline submission is due February 21st. Before that deadline, city departments are required to get public input on their budget priorities and budget proposals. And the commission typically has conducted these hearings as a part of the regular commission meeting. So this meeting, this hearing represents the first public hearing where we will discuss the budget priorities for these years. We have a hearing planned for the February 9th regular meeting where we will talk about the specific or a few options for the budget proposal before we submit it to the mayor's office. So a few other dates to keep in mind. Once the departments submit the budget proposals by February 21st, the mayor's office will look at the different proposals and work with the departments and come up with the mayor's proposed budget by June 1st, which they will submit to the Board of Supervisors. And the Board of Supervisors will then review and make changes to the proposal and send the budget back to the mayor by August 1st. And typically, the budget gets fully adopted soon after that. Now to give you, an overview of our funding snapshot. So you see here, there are 3 columns. The first column is for our current fiscal year's approved budget. And then you see the baseline budget for FY25 and 26. So currently we have $7 million approved with funded positions 30.5, and then the decimals there represent the specific funding amounts in the budget allocated. If you look at our org chart, you will see 34 positions. However, the way in which city's budgeting process works, departments are required to keep a certain number of funds aside to account for attrition. So the understanding is that, as a part of normal attrition, employees may move to other departments or move out of the city, and there could be salary savings during those types of vacancies. So that's why you see the total position shows 34, but then the funded position shows 30.5 because we are accounting for that. In the next few years, you'll see that the budget, the starting point, which is a baseline budget, goes down a little bit. Specifically, you'll see that there are 2 positions. We are down by 2 positions. That's because as a part of the prior year's budgeting process, we had 2 positions that we were not able to get continued funding. So those positions funding expire June of this year. So that's why you see a drop between FY24, which shows 34, and FY25, again, 32. And just to give you an idea, currently we have 25 positions filled. We also administer an election campaign fund, which is not accounted for as a part of our regular operating budget. It's like a special project fund. This fund is used to provide partial public financing for candidates for mayor and board of supervisors who choose to participate in the program. Currently, the fund has $4 million and it is capped at $7 million. So typically, we provide our projections and estimates to the mayor's budget office, and they determine the allocations to this fund. And currently, the baseline budget shows that they've planned an allocation of about $446,000 each year. Wanted to give you a high-level idea of our budget distribution. You'll see here that majority of our budget is allocated for staffing, salary and benefits, 87%. We also have some allocation for services of other departments. These are services from departments like Department of HR for personal and recruitment type services, services from Department of Technology for licenses, basic infrastructure, communications, phones, SFGov TV support, etc. And we also have a small allocation for non-personnel funds. This represents allocations such as training for staff and maybe any services that are not supported directly by Department of Technology. Like there are certain software licenses that are contracted at the city level, some of them that departments may need to fund on their own. So those types of services fall under this category. So I think the main thing to note here is that we're a very lean organization when it comes to just general operational expenses. A majority of our funds are allocated for staffing. Here you'll see a distribution of our staff in terms of our functional areas. We have 6 divisions currently. The Engagement Compliance Division is focused on providing assistance to filers, providing advice and guidance, providing training. They are also responsible for reviewing all of the filings that come in for various programs. They also provide administrative support in certain parts of our departmental needs, such as, for example, assisting with the commission meetings, as we don't have dedicated staff for those types of functions. The audit division is responsible for conducting campaign audits and lobbying audits at the moment. Enforcement division, as you may have seen more of their work through investigations, there are investigators in that team conducting that work. Policy division, of course, working on our commission's policy efforts, as well as providing day-to-day support to our staff in terms of advice, clarity on how to interpret laws, also engaging with media. The Ethics at Work division is a brand new program that we had built out a couple of years ago. We had seen the need to provide greater outreach to city departments beyond the standard trainings that we offer to city staff. So this team has been working with departments individually to identify their resource needs and training needs and providing customized support to them. And that work has been progressing well and is underway. Last year, when we had staffing shortages, this team also stepped in to help the compliance team because we did not have enough staffing in that team. So this team has been working well with our compliance division as well and assisting as needed. And lastly, the electronic disclosure and data analysis. This is essentially our IT team in charge of handling all of our technology needs, including providing assistance for conducting meetings, devices, software licenses, working with DT, making sure we have the right technology policies, cybersecurity policies, and other policies. So providing core support for our departmental day-to-day needs, as well as our supporting our electronic disclosure systems. So that's a general overview of how we are organized functionally. The next slide gives you a deeper look in how our staffing is allocated per functional area. So here, I just want to point out some color coding here. You'll see that some of the positions are highlighted in red. That is because those are the positions over the recent years we had to leave vacant to meet attrition. So this sort of represents the dip in the allocated positions versus funded positions. We haven't been able to fill them. We had to leave them vacant based on funds that were approved in this year. Now, I've marked a couple of positions with the 1844 Engagement and Compliance Officer role and the Junior Management Assistant, which should be 1840 there actually, a small correction. So the 1840 and 1844, these were positions that we were planning to fill this year because we do have funding. However, as these vacancies happened right around October timeframe, that overlapped with when the mayor's office was looking at conducting a mid-year cut. So we had to hold off on immediate recruitment to wait until they completed their analysis and gave us the okay. And they did approve our request to fill these positions, but by then the mayor's office had announced the instructions for the next fiscal year, and it was clear that we may need to hold these positions also vacant. We may be able to fill them until June, but we're not sure if we have funding beyond then. So that's why, even though we have funding right now, and the plan was to fill them, we currently, at the moment, we have to leave them vacant. You'll also note that there are two positions that I mentioned earlier that expire in June, the 1823 Senior Administrative Analyst and also a Senior Investigator position. So these are the two positions that will expire at the end of June this year. The next chart gives you just another view of our staffing distribution. I think the key thing to note here are which areas we have vacancies. So you'll see that on the administrative side, we don't have a lot of positions to begin with, and there are various vacancies. And this is sort of the challenges that we typically talk about when it comes to assistance with our contracting, procurement, or general administration. We don't have a lot of staffing there. Also, we currently have vacancies in the Engagement Compliance Division, Policy, and Enforcement. And we've also identified the vacancies that are expiring as well. So it just gives you a different view of the same information. Now, moving on to the instructions that we have received from the mayor's office, here are the priorities that the mayor has established for the city for the upcoming years: improving public safety and street conditions, citywide economic vitality, reducing homelessness and transforming mental health service delivery, accountability and equity in services and spending. And the instructions they provided with regards to cuts, the city departments are expected to propose a budget that represents 10% cut, plus a 5% as a contingency in case the economic situation of the city is much worse than what they're initially anticipating. So the 10% and 5% basically is the same amount that needs to be maintained in both years. So it's not an additional 10 in the following year. So it's essentially we have to present a budget that represents 15% cut in both years. Now, the 10% amount translates to $680,000 and 5% is $340,000. We're also told that we cannot ask for new positions. and to prioritize filling positions based on core needs of the department. So if you look at, generally, if you look at our current, the total positions in our org chart, which are 34 positions, this is what we would ideally need if we were to fill all of those positions. That is 7.9 million total in the first year in FY25 and 8.1 million in the second year. And you'll see at the top of this table that what is allocated, though, is 6.8 million and 7. So there is that huge gap in terms of all of the positions that currently show up in our org chart and in terms of what has been funded. Now, looking at the 10% budget cut, I just wanted to give you an idea of what that translates to in total in terms of number. I had, talked about attrition savings that departments are required to maintain. So you'll see those numbers here for both the fiscal years. We, as a starting point, we have to make sure we allocate 644,000 and 646,000 aside from our salary accounts as a starting point. And then on top of that, we have to identify 10% budget cuts. So that represents about 1.3 million in both years. So if at the end of this funding process, if the city were to decide to do the 10% cut, that would mean a 1.3 million impact to us as of now. Now, with the requirement to propose an additional 5% contingency, that total comes up to 1.6 million in both years. So you can see that addition there. Now, in order to identify savings for the budget process, we've been looking at all of our budget accounts and how we've allocated funds. We've been looking to see if there are areas where we can find savings. And it is clear that one of the major areas where we'll need to use savings are from salary. So essentially, most of the positions that I've identified as vacant will likely need to be left vacant. In addition, I wanted to point out a couple of areas where we have identified savings. One of them is our net file maintenance costs. So right now, we pay about $130,000 or so $1,000. I may be off on the exact number, but somewhere in that range for NetFile. This is the vendor that provides the e-filing disclosure systems that our campaign filers use, Form 700 filers use, and many other filers use. And right now, all of those maintenance charges go directly to our operating budget, are charged to our operating budget. However, we've had a lobbyist project fund that was allocated through a ballot measure some years ago, which was specifically can be used only for lobbying-related programmatic work. So we were able to identify a portion of that particular cost, and we can direct it to that particular fund, which would be about $59,000. So that's one area where we can rework how the funds are allocated. Now, we have not in the past used that fund because we were thinking at some point we may want to redesign the lobbyist system. So that's what we were saving that fund for. So the impact of this reallocation would be that we may have lesser amounts of funds if in the future we choose to redesign that system. That we've identified areas where that system can be improved. So that's why we have the fund. We haven't touched it until now, but this may be the time when we could use that fund. Also, we've been working with the Department of Human Resources and identified savings there. We learned that the services they provide. Originally the goal was to allocate a full-time person from DHR to our office, but over time that has reduced in terms of percentage of allocation from that office. So we wanted to make sure that the budget reflected the percentage of the actual service that we were getting, which is why the 50% cut would still allow us to perform the work that we need to do in the coming years. So those are all the areas that we've identified, and this next slide gives you a snapshot of what the impact looks like. So for the 10% scenario, we will have to use the savings set on the non-salary side that I talked about just now, net file and the work order, leave 5 of staff the vacancies open. And I'm not, of course, including the ED vacancy that we've had up until now. That would allow us to meet the 10% scenario. Now, if we were to look at the additional 5%, what that would mean is we have to leave all of our existing positions vacant, and there is a gap in terms of the funds that we need to cover. So that will also mean we need to identify a position that may need to be potentially laid off. So we have indicated this to the mayor's office. I know that that's something that they're certainly looking at, across the city. So at the moment, we don't know, what kind of cut we will be asked to make in the coming months. But I wanted to go a little bit more deeper here. Well, before that, just here are the positions that are impacted, just so you know. Again, the vacancies that we currently have in our department represent, services in the areas of compliance, policy, enforcement, and administrative work. So we're already challenged in some of those areas, and that strain will continue to happen in the next few years. And again, going a little deeper into what the 10% cut will mean for us. Again, continued reduction in all of those areas where we can't fill staff, continued reduction in our enforcement capacity, policy, advice, guidance, compliance, and of course, insufficient staffing for administrative work. And this is, work by providing services to our to the public through our office, front office service, commission meeting support, HR, contracting, procurement. So all of those areas, again, these are all the areas where we don't have enough staffing, and that'll continue. One other thing I want to mention in the previous slide is when you look at the 10% and 15% scenario that I've identified, we won't know until end of May what level of cuts that we will be asked to make. So even though under 10% scenario, we may be able to fill the 1844 position that I've identified, in reality, as we don't know if that is the likely scenario, we may not be able to actually proceed with filling that position, because we wouldn't want to go through that process and then later on realize that the cut needed is much larger. So this represents, in terms of just budget, what the impact looks like, but in reality, we will end up having to leave all the positions vacant until we have clarity on this. And moving on to what this will look like for 15% cut, of course, here I do want to emphasize that the 1844 engagement and compliance officer position, this is the senior position that provides support for all Form 700 filers and also other ethics-related compliance requirements. So this is a key gap currently in place in our office. We do have other staff who are helping out, but this is a key role that in the past has provided direct support to departments and filers. So that, again, is a huge impact. And of course, the impact of having to identify a position to lay off is going to have a huge impact on whichever area that falls under, plus the impact on staff morale or retention. So these are extremely concerning issues for us. And just high-level idea of key priorities. We want to make sure that we can retain all of our existing staff, especially, we're tracking the March election. If the ballot measure were to pass, then there's going to be a lot of work in really making sure that we have all of the necessary resources and materials and programmatic bandwidth in place to support departments and the public on that. And of course, we want to fill all of the positions that are current operational gaps, and be able to maintain all of the technology services that our filers use and the public use to be able to access disclosures and to fulfill the transparency goal. Now, separately, I'll say that I'm hoping to hear any feedback from all of you and the public to see if there are any specific areas that are top priorities for you. And I'll also be working with the new ED to see if he has any other priorities or vision for how the next few years will need to be planned. So this may evolve in the coming weeks, but the goal is to provide a more detailed proposal for the February meeting. So with that, I'll stop here and let's see if you have any feedback or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, comments from the colleagues?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say that I thought the graphics were really helpful in understanding the situation, especially the chart on page 16. So kudos to whoever prepared those. It made it really easy to absorb the situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment first, and then a couple of follow-ups.
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Director, I have a question regarding the specific impact on the policy division. It's
Yes.
always been very small. It's always been a personal one, and I think it took a lot of support from our stakeholders as well as the Board of Supervisors to have an additional position. And it's currently vacant, and I know that it's more easy to not fill the position instead of just having to let go an existing staff member. But I think policy has always been one of the least appreciative work of the commission, but it's the most vital, especially as we look long term on where clean government accountability goes. So I don't know how we can really push to protect that position, but I think that while it's easier not to leave some of the positions vacant, but I think the policy position, because we're looking at a 50% reduction of a really vital component of the commission's work. So I would like to see us come up with some creative strategies to really fulfill that position, because I know the support is there, the need is there. I know the budget is tight, but no one can step in to do the job. So that's one comment. The second comment I have is the senior officer position for 700 compliance. We've just made a huge accomplishment the last year. We had a great response rate. I think it's largely due to the staff's professionalism, its outreach, its engagement with the folks who are involved. And it's very unfortunate that we lost this person. And if we lose this position, I'm afraid that it's going to regress back to where we were, which was a much lower compliance rate. And just when the public is really looking to us in terms of keeping the city honest, we need to find ways to have that position filled with the qualified person. So those are the two positions that specifically jumped up to me. I know that, there are positions that's left unfilled. They're all important, but I think that looking forward to the commission's future relevance and engagement and needs, those are my two top concerns. And I hope that we'll find a way to work with the mayor's office. And again, the Board of Supervisors approved these additional staffing. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Chair. We'll certainly take that into consideration as we plan options for our proposal. Thank you.
If not, I think the next public hearing on the budget is February
9th. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have a budget agenda published by February 5th. That's what we're targeting. Yeah.
Okay. So let us, there's no motion necessary. So let us go to agenda item number 8, which is an update and discussion regarding the March 2024 Ethics Commission Ballot Measure focused on gifts, training, and the other city ethics laws. Mr. Kenning, would you like to give us an update?
Yes.
Discussion.
Thank you, Chair Lee, Commissioners. The staff memo on this item provides a brief update on the status of the ballot measure the Commission placed on the March 2024 ballot back in August, which has since been designated as Proposition D. The memo also provides an overview of draft regulations developed for Section 3.218 of the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code as it may be amended by Prop D. I'd like to briefly provide an overview of the regulation development process, the regulations as drafted, and discuss potential next steps. As with the earlier set of regulations approved by the Commission in August, when it voted on the ballot measure, these regulations for Section 3.218 will only be applicable if Prop D is approved by voters and would only be going into effect at the same time as Prop D, which would be a little more than 6 months after the March 2024 election. Section 3.218 currently contains rules governing the city's statements of incompatible activities, or SIAs, which are documents that each city department currently has. Prop D would replace those individual documents with a standardized set of rules, which would be located in Section 3.218 and be applied uniformly across the city. If amended by Prop D, Section 3.218 would contain rules for city officials regarding activities that are considered incompatible with their city service, such as engaging in activities that are subject to their department's jurisdiction, offering selective assistance, or using city resources for private gain or advantage. A full list of the rules in Section 3.218 is available in Attachment 1, which is an excerpt of Prop D, showing what changes Prop D would make to the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. The intent of the proposed draft regulations is to clarify terms and specify the scope of Section 3.218. Having this additional clarity in place well before any changes that will potentially be made by Prop D go into effect is intended to assist the implementation of those potential changes. To develop and refine these draft regulations with feedback from stakeholders, staff held 2 interested persons meetings on this subject last year. Staff has also had multiple meetings with officials from the Department of Public Health to identify their concerns and discuss how these proposed regulations could address their concerns. Following changes to earlier drafts following changes to earlier drafts based on feedback from DPH officials. The DPH officials have relayed to staff that the current version addresses their concerns and that while still promoting strong conflict of interest rules. Now I'll briefly review the 5 proposed regulations in order. All of the proposed regulations deal with Section 3.218A1, which generally prohibits city officers and employees from engaging in activities that are subject to their department's jurisdiction, which means activities that are subject to, quote, the control, inspection, review, audit, permitting, enforcement, and contracting, or otherwise within the responsibility of their department. Section 3.218A1 allows for city officials to be a party to a matter before their department or commission on behalf of themselves or their immediate family. The first proposed regulation specifies that this is allowed, but that the city official must also not participate in and must fully abstain from any involvement in such matters as part of their city duties. The second proposed regulation specifies that merely being employed by an entity that engages in activities subject to a department's jurisdiction is not prohibited if certain conditions are met. Specifically, that 1, the city official does not personally and substantially engage in such activities on behalf of their non-city employer, and that they do not participate in and fully abstain from matters explicitly involving their non-city employer as part of their city duties. The third regulation is similar to the second, except that instead of applying to employment, it specifies that owning or exercising management or control over an entity is also not prohibited if certain conditions are met. Specifically, that the city official does not personally and substantially engage in activities for the non-city entity, in such activities for the non-city entity. 2, that they do not participate in and fully abstain from matters explicitly involving the non-city entity as part of their city duties. And 3, that the outside entity is not contracting with the city official's department, as contracting with one's own department is already explicitly prohibited by Section 3.218. The fourth regulation regards the exception that exists in Section 3.218A1 that allows city officials to engage in non-compensated volunteer activity for nonprofit organizations. The proposed regulation specifies that this exception includes serving on the board of directors of a nonprofit organization, as long as, again, specific conditions are met, specifically that in their capacity as a city official, they do not participate in and fully abstain from any involvement in any matters explicitly involving the nonprofit organization on which they're a board member, and that the nonprofit organization does not contract with their department. The last regulation proposed specifies that contracting with one's own department includes being an officer or exercising management or control over an entity that contracts with the official's department. This is similar to a standard that's used in the city's existing prohibition against officers contracting with the city. Staff believes that these regulations are important for implementing Section 3.218 as they maintain the strong rules found in that section, while also allowing city officials to engage in certain outside activities that may be valuable, but with specific guardrails in place to limit the risk of those activities causing conflicts of interest, either real or perceived. Regarding potential next steps, if following any discussion on the item today, the Commission feels comfortable with these draft regulations, the next step would be for staff to begin working with the Department of Human Resources to satisfy any meeting and for obligation the city may have. Staff can also make revisions based on feedback from the Commission or their stakeholders prior to moving forward to that step. Or if the Commission has significant concerns about the status of these regulations, we can also return back with revised drafts before moving ahead with DHR on that process. Regardless of the next steps or for the next immediate step, these regulations will need to come back before the Commission for final notice and approval before being voted on and potentially enacted. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions the Commission has or to elaborate on any of the specific proposed regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The summary was really helpful.
Yeah, I'm curious, Mr. Canning, what are the kind of specific timing issues that we need to be thinking about in the event that we do want to make some suggestions? I'm looking for kind of specific deadlines, and maybe there aren't any.
There are no specific deadlines. I think the benefit of moving sooner on these than later is that there is the potential that there will be a meet and confer process that could take some time. And while the rules, if Prop D is approved, the rules wouldn't go into effect until more than 6 months after the March election. There will be a lot of training and implementation that would happen over the summer. So if these rules were more solidified by that time, it would allow our Ethics at Work team, for example, to reflect those interpretations more clearly in training materials that will be being conducted prior to the rules going into effect.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up on that. So regardless of, in anticipation of one way or another, the result of the March election, I would suggest that you and your team put together a specific plan for action, which is included what you have said already in terms of next steps, but more concretely, the day or a couple of days after the election, people are going to contact the Ethics Commission. And regardless, you want to reach out to our community partners. So it would be great if you can put together a succinct one-page analysis of what's the next step, what are the roles of the Ethics Commission and members of the public, so that we can really establish the need to really continue to engage with the folks. You mentioned 6 months, but 6 months go by really fast, and it would be great if you and your team of you probably put together that plan, the action plan, the day after the election. How do you roll out, and the role that the Ethics Commission will play. So that would be very, very helpful.
Yes, happy to work on that, Shirley. We've also been meeting internally and implementing Prop D, if it is approved by voters, would definitely be a department-wide project. And we've been meeting cross divisions to plan trainings and materials and what the rollout and implementation needs would be already.
And I know that I've said this from the first day I got here. We really need to recognize the emerging, diverse, not even emerging, but the diverse communities. And most of them had not been actively engaged with us. And I think that we really need to use this opportunity to really engage with them because this initiative really, really impact everybody. And those are the folks who are the least likely to get the accurate information. So I would suggest strongly focus efforts to reach out to that community would be a top priority in language and in culture. Okay. Let's open up for public comment on this item.
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there's one caller. Welcome,
Good
caller.
morning, Commissioners. Good morning. This is Debbie Lerman from the San Francisco Human Services Network. We appreciate the changes that have been made in the regulations so far, but still feel that some of these regulations are overly broad. Regarding Rule 2 about employment, it is overly broad for non-decision makers like frontline workers, case managers, childcare workers, and specialists like nurses and psychiatrists. Nonprofits are facing a staffing crisis, and this regulation undermines the ability to achieve outcomes under city contracts and also has an impact on entry-level employees with multiple jobs. We object to the requirement that the position can't be majority funded by the employee's department. Because these workers don't participate in decision-making or represent the nonprofit in discussions with the city, the regulations should allow frontline workers to engage in part-time employment at a city-funded nonprofit. The part on contributing to documents and materials is also vague. For example, how would it apply to a caseworker who's preparing data for a compliance report under the contract? We also are concerned that the provisions about serving on nonprofit boards is still overly broad. For example, the regulation would prohibit hundreds of DPH staff from sharing their expertise as board members with dozens of healthcare nonprofits that contract with DPH, even if the service area isn't part of their job, such as a substance use employee serving with an AIDS nonprofit. Again, the issue is with non-managerial staff who don't participate in contracting decisions. The regulations should allow city staff to serve on a nonprofit board, even if the nonprofit has a contract with that department. It is a sufficient guardrail to ensure that the city employee does not participate in matters involving the nonprofit as part of their city duties. And approval could be required by the department on a case-by-case basis with criteria to guide that decision. I want to distinguish nonprofits and for-profits regarding the boards of directors. Nonprofit board members have no personal gain arising from service as an uncompensated volunteer, and there is a negligible risk of corrupting influence. It serves the public interest for the Commission to acknowledge those differences and regulate them accordingly. I recognize that this is in the ballot measure, but the 6-month implementation period would allow the Commission and the board to consider this change. Thank you for your consideration. And also, congratulations to Commissioner Lee on completing your service. Thank you for listening to us. Best.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, there are no more callers.
Okay. Let us go to agenda item number 9, which is to acknowledge my outgoing term. So let's keep this short and sweet so we can go home before noon.
Gives us half an hour.
Madam Chair, if I may add a few comments on this item.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Lee. This item is on the agenda as we wanted to have an opportunity to show our appreciation for your work on the occasion of your 6-year term coming to an end on February 1st, and this is going to be your last meeting. On behalf of staff, I want to share our deepest gratitude with you for your vision, strong leadership, and commitment for the Commission's work. We thank you for the support, encouragement, and inspiration that you have provided to us on a daily basis, and to really, keep us motivated to do this important work for the public. So we appreciate all your contributions and we wish you the best. We also have a plaque that we want to present to you when we conclude this item, maybe after the public comment. That I'll stop there, but just wanted to share a general appreciation for all of your work. And we wish you well.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a few comments as well, but I don't want to get in front of you if you were about to say something.
No, go ahead.
I just, Mr. Ford mentioned earlier that his job or the job of staff is sometimes thankless. It goes for commissioners as well. And I know you spend countless hours outside these meetings working on the commission's priorities, and you don't get paid for it. So it's not only thankless, it's also not remunerative. Since I've been here, there are, I think, 3 issues in particular where I think you've been a real driving force. The ballot measure, the budget issues we dealt with some months back, which will be an ongoing issue, and the executive director search. I want to thank you for really pushing those forward. And I think under your chairpersonship, meetings have been professional, convivial, focused on what really matters, which is how it should be, but it's not always a given in local politics. I think city government would not function but for dedicated members of the community like you doing what you do. So I want to thank you for all that.
Today's a very bittersweet day. I remember my first meeting here, and throughout the last 6 years, I can say that I've benefited a lot from learning from the 3 chairs that I served with under chairs already knowing Ambrose and David Chu. They have set a really great example for what this commission really stands for. And I am just humbled to be able to continue on the path that they and previous commission has set. It's been a very enjoyable and learning 6 years. And yes, like Pat and other folks have said, this is a very difficult job. The commission is not one of those government bodies that people can really realize and touch the positive results of the work that the department does. And the Ethics Commission is really blessed to have not just professionals, but professionals who are dedicated, committed, and feel the compassion to do, to carry out the mission, which is really, really a rare find in public service nowadays. You don't come to work just for the paycheck. Every one of you come every day to do the hard work because you want to believe, and you have made a difference, even though it's not something that we can really touch and realize. And I am humbled by the staff because it's been said that this is one of the smaller public agencies in not only the city, but in the Bay Area. But the impact that you have made is tremendous. How many people can say that you can still get emails at 1 o'clock in the morning and at 5 o'clock in the morning? from the previous executive director and from the current acting executive director, and possibly from the next executive director, because it's never a 9 to 7 job. And your passion, your commitment, and your belief that it serves all of us well to have an accountable, transparent, open, and engaging government. And that's what drives me. And I will miss all of you. I know that you will do really well under the new leadership on the commission, as well as the administration. This is a great time for the commission with the upcoming election, with the new year. There are a lot of challenges, but I want to wish you nothing but the best moving forward with the most strong resolve and commitment. And I will be sitting on the other side of this room often just to keep all of us honest and pushing forward and why we have this commission to begin with. So thank you very much. Okay. Let's go to agenda item number 10.
Chair Lee, we wanted to present the plaque to you and also public
Okay,
comment as well on this. So would-
okay, and I assume it's under the allowable gift rules, right?
Why don't we do the presentation first then, before public comment? Would
Okay.
that be okay?
Okay.
Okay, yes. Take a picture with all the commissioners as well.
Okay, let us now go to agenda item number 10, which is items for future meetings.
Chair Lee, we had the public comment on this item as well.
Oh, I told my friend not to call in, so. But we're going to drinks afterwards tonight. Okay.
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. There's one caller. Welcome, caller. You have your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, thank you for this time. In addition to Commission Chairman, Chairperson Lee, there's someone else who needs to be recognized today, and that's Acting Director Gayatri Taikendil. For over a year since the previous director's departure, he has faithfully fulfilled the duties of Acting Director, always acting in the best interest of the public and the Ethics Commission. Kept the Ethics Commission's priorities moving forward during an uncertain time. And I implore the commissioners to recognize and applaud her dedication and her sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, there are no more callers.
Okay, let's go to agenda number 9, which is agenda item number 10, items for future meetings. Public comment on that?
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers.
Okay. Item number 11, additional opportunities for general public comment.
Madam Chair, we're checking to see if there are callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there are no callers.
Okay, let us go to agenda item number 12, which is adjournment, no public comment. Thank you all and have a blessed rest of the week.